Well, the day has finally arrived where we are given, us plebs, an inside look into Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan estate. Can't tell you how long I've been waiting to see these pictures. It's been years. And it's even weirder than I actually anticipated. So let's go over it. Well, first off, I want to say thank you and welcome to all the new subscribers. I'm going to be giving you all this sort of Epstein slop that you've been looking for ever since you saw that Meaning of Epstein's Temple video. So let's dive into this. In this 7-story townhouse, the sex offender host of the elite displayed photos with presidents and showcased a first edition of Lolita, according to previously unreported photos and letters. The Lolita thing is a big one. He actually showcased that in a display case, and it's a book about some old man grooming a 12-year-old. And I don't know if this was gifted to him or it's something he bought himself to display in his home, but that's crazy. So let's go over anyway the first picture that they display here. It shows a bride on a rope, seeming like she's trying to escape. I would say the symbolism here is just, the overall mockery of traditional values of getting married. It's showing the runaway bride here. Perhaps she's escaping her marriage vows or whatever, sort of making fun of the traditional Christian values. Also, it's displaying, this idea of his power to capture women and them wanting to escape. I don't know, this is just, it's a very specific piece of art that's very elaborate. Like, I don't think he bought this house with this already here. Like, this is something that came from the mind of Giuffre. This is something that he put a lot of work into displaying in his house. So now I'm looking at the background here. He's got a picture of a sky. The guy, he loves his private jet. He loves being in the sky. It makes sense to have that. Flat earthers will look at that and be like, oh, it looks pretty flat. Maybe he knew about that. I don't know. Let's not go there. Yeah, Giuffre seemed to be pretty popular amongst the elite. For example, as a gift for his 63rd birthday, friends sent him letters in tribute to the wealthy financier. And it was a bunch of big names who did this, like Woody Allen is one. And Woody Allen is one of the biggest creeps in Hollywood there is. He adopted some little Chinese girl and then groomed her to be his wife. Like, that is unheard of. That is something that would only be socially acceptable amongst the most depraved members of the Hollywood elite. I don't even think all of Hollywood is cool with what he did, just like a certain large sect of it was. So, of course, Woody Allen and Epstein would be super tight. In his letter, I read it. It was extremely boring. It was him basically complaining about how bad the food was at Epstein's parties, which is a little strange considering that Epstein took so much care in presenting this opulent image of himself and being an excellent host. Turns out he wasn't even that good of a host. So it says that this property of Epstein's, it was 7 stories. That's a pretty big house to have in Manhattan. This reporter asks, why did so many powerful men continue to fraternize with him long after he became a registered sex offender? Like they care. Like they all knew about it. Like he's acting like the people who hung out with Epstein were just normal people that we would meet in our day-to-day lives. Like this is an entirely different substrata of individuals. It goes on to talk about how Miss Maxwell has been moved to a lower security facility that fueled speculation that Mr. Trump might commute her sentence or even pardon her in return for her cooperation. Well, I haven't seen any new news about this. It seems like she's just getting perks without us getting anything in return. And that's sort of been the MAGA movement as a whole, where we're waiting for things to happen and we just get nothing in return. We don't get mass deportations. We don't get the Epstein files. It's a carrot on a stick, but we never get the carrot. I know it hasn't been that long yet, but after all of the letdowns, you can't expect anything from this. Trump is like a dad. I sound like the left. He's like this dad that he promises all these amazing things like, oh, we're going to be going to Disney World. Don't worry, we're going to be going on this vacation and the kids are all excited. But then he just never takes the kids on any rides or any vacations. And I think that's why so many people who have daddy issues get so angry with Trump in a way that just isn't really rational. He just represents that figure. This was interesting. At least one other MAGA luminary also visited the townhouse, Steve Bannon, a former advisor to Mr. Trump. Most of you know Steve Bannon. He has a show where he's all about being a MAGA patriot, taking down the swamp, holding them accountable. He was hanging out with the swamp this whole time. Like, it totally goes against his brand to learn this about him. I'm sure maybe a lot of you guys already knew this, but I just didn't know that yet until I read this. So, this townhouse was one of 5 properties around the world owned by Mr. Epstein. After his release in 2009 from a Florida jail, okay, that was a joke, by the way. He served 13 months. I reported on this back in the day, where they just let him they just let him leave jail whenever he wanted to. He would just leave jail and go home and eat a snack or get a massage, whatever he does, and just come back to jail. It was the most absurd sentence you've ever heard of. And this was when he was caught for soliciting prostitution from a teenager. So this townhouse is a stone's throw from Central Park, and it was sold to Epstein in 1998 by Leslie Wexner. He's the billionaire owner of L Brands. And then that's when Epstein renovated and redecorated the mansion in an eccentric style. So everything we see here is from his mind. This isn't from Wexner. Although Wexner was how Epstein met a lot of these girls. And he was completely part of it too. It says dozens of framed prosthetic eyeballs lined the entranceway. So yeah, of course, first thing that comes to mind is the all-seeing eye. That's a common theme with these billionaires. For example, Naomi Campbell, she has this weird Eye of Horus mansion on an island, and she was someone who 100% knew about everything Epstein was doing. Virginia Giuffre said that she was one of the people in on it and was one of the more cruel individuals towards the girls that Epstein was trafficking. It says photos show that guests sat in leopard print chairs around a large rectangular table when Epstein was hosting these parties. And yeah, he seemed to really like leopard prints and animal skins for chairs. I saw a few chairs like that on Epstein's island as well. It says that at his house, Epstein preserved a map of Israel drawn on a chalkboard with Mr. Barak's signature. That was Ehud Barak, who was the prime minister of Israel, and very close to Epstein. So here's some of the pictures that he had at his home. There was Mr. Epstein smiling alongside Pope John Paul II, Mick Jagger, Elon Musk, and Fidel Castro. So yeah, a lot of these billionaires, they have a soft spot for Marxism and communism because they view it as a way to create a slave class that they can rule over. It was somewhat surprising, but not really, to see that Elon Musk is one of the framed individuals here because he has been so adamant about releasing the Epstein files. Although whatever in those files, it can't be good for his brand. So what I'm assuming is that Musk knows that the Trump administration is not going to release the files. So this is his way of helping to improve his brand by saying, why don't you release them? Do it, when he knows full well they're not going to, and that it would be against his interests if they did. Pretty smart tactic, really. Here's some more pictures. Also pictured were Larry Summers, former President Bill Clinton, and Richard Branson. Look at how close Bill Clinton and Epstein were. They were seriously best buddies. They look like lovers. You know when sometimes when two guy best friends are super close, they make jokes like, "Oh, we're gay together." This is the vibe they gave off, homoerotic vibes. I don't think they were actually doing anything sexual with each other, but you could just tell the love that they had. Richard Branson, he's not surprising to see in here. He also has an island in the Virgin Islands. So for sure he's part of it. And we got nearby was the photo from 2000 showing Mr. Epstein with Mr. Trump and the future lady, minus Miss Maxwell. So they cut out Miss Maxwell in this picture. Yeah, there's pretty credible rumors that Trump actually met Melania in 2001 on Giuffre's plane. That's how he met her. He introduced Trump to his future wife. They were extremely close. And it seems like they had a falling out for several reasons. One, Epstein bought a property that he knew Trump was interested in and looking at. Epstein was poaching his girls over at Mar-a-Lago, like Virginia Giuffre. And the original story was, Trump kicked out Epstein for being a creep around his girls at Mar-a-Lago. But then recently in an interview, Trump was like, well, he was poaching my girls. So it's okay, it wasn't because you kicked him out for any moral reasons. It was because he keeps messing with your investments and your employees. It was all just a power game. Another weird thing is, next to that was a framed dollar bill signed by Bill Gates, possibly as payment of a bet, saying, I was wrong. Okay, what was he wrong about? I was wrong. I thought the girl was 11. Turns out she's 12. Something fucked up, I feel like. Mr. Epstein's office displayed a photo of him with Saudi Arabia's crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman. So The royalty of Saudi Arabia is extremely close with Israel. Epstein was also in the upper echelons of Israel. It makes a lot of sense that they would be tight. So this was the weird thing. In the office, according to photos reviewed by the Times, Mr. Epstein showcased a green first edition of Lolita, the 1955 novel in which an intellectual develops a sexual obsession with a 12-year-old girl and repeatedly Rs her. Atop a wooden sideboard were more framed photos, including one of Mr. Epstein with Saudi Arabia's crown prince. If that's not the most damning thing you've ever seen. And just shows he had no shame for what he was doing, and that nobody else around him cared. And they all just acted like it was a big joke. Yeah, their sense of humor is just very different from the average person's. Then he names his jet the Lolita Express. This was like the dude's entire personality. So here's a bedroom. This was where Epstein slept. Looks like massages took place here. And mounted in a corner above his bed was a surveillance camera. Very obvious, too. Like, I had this idea that the cameras would be really well hidden, maybe inside the fire detector or a light bulb. But no, they're just right there, obvious for everyone to see. Because I think that once you get powerful enough, like, you know that you have to do some things on camera so that they have blackmail on you so they can control you. They can only hide this, like, sneaky tactic, this honeypot for so long until everyone just knows, like, okay, this is just the deal. It's like, hey, if you want to have power and status, we need to have some dirt on you. It seems like everyone just kind of understood how it is. Here's a second camera in the adjoining room. But now with AI, it's like this tactic isn't as effective anymore. So they're probably going to have to sort of tweak their blackmail. It says Mr. Epstein regularly directed teenage girls, some recruited from the middle school in Queens, to massage him. And according to some interviews, he R'd or assaulted them. And no surveillance cameras were visible in the photos of the massage room. So an earlier collection of letters presented to Mr. Epstein in a leather-bound album for his 50th birthday in 2003 reflected an era of his life before his first arrest. That book included contributions from Mr. Trump and Mr. Clinton, among dozens of others. We just keep finding Trump with Epstein. Mr. Trump has denied a report in the Journal that he contributed to a sexually suggestive note and drawing, even though he's been known to doodle. We haven't seen pictures of the drawing, but apparently for his birthday, he drew a picture of a naked woman and signed his initials in her pubes. But by 2016, as Mr. Epstein's reputation as a predator became increasingly hard to ignore, his social network was shrinking. And then 3 years later, he would die in a Manhattan jail. Yeah, because back then people like me were reporting on it to the point where he was just such a reputation ruiner. They couldn't be seen around him. Not because these people had an issue with what he was doing, they knew all along, but just the PR was so bad. All right, here, this looks like his office. He has a taxidermy tiger. It says there were also letters from the linguist Noam Chomsky. Not surprised at all that he was friends with him. He seemed to attract these people that were holier-than-thou leftists, who talked a big game about how wonderful and empathetic they were as people, but were totally pieces of shit behind the scenes. Noam Chomsky, he sums that up really well. So Mr. Barack hailed Epstein as a collector of people. The letter concluded, "May you enjoy a long and healthy life, and may all of us, your friends, enjoy your table for many more years to come." Yeah, they seem to get a kick out of turning Gentile girls into sex slaves. So someone asked in this article, how was all this info obtained? Why is it available now? Can you please report on your reporting process? The writer basically said he can't tell where he got his sources from to protect their identity, or else they won't be able to obtain any more source material. But at this stage, we all know who was involved with Epstein. There just hasn't been any accountability. And unless we get serious politicians into office who aren't just controlled opposition like Trump is, we never will. And by the time, if we ever do that, it's probably just going to be too late. It says here, the president's avid followers have backed him through many controversies, but more than a third of Republicans disapprove of his handling of the files related to Epstein. And I've even heard this from people in my own life who have backed Trump through everything, but this is where they drew the line. Like, this has sunk the MAGA movement. Even the Q people, I don't even think, can defend him on this. I hope they're not. They might be. I don't follow those circles. But yeah, I was looking through these photos of any statues of Baal or whatnot. Did not see any. I know a lot of you have been commenting that Epstein's niece said that he worshiped Baal, and I talked about that in one of my other videos. But yeah, they're all in this like esoteric sort of occultic secret religion. That's very anti-Christian. I mean, if that doesn't tell you there's something to Christianity, I don't know what will. So that concludes this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and feel free to join my Telegram channel. Link is in the bio. Thank you.